I will start with at least one time when I thought I did a bad job, and how it taught me to become a better communicator. So I was working with the Russians, getting ready for our early docking missions, and we had been simulating our MOD team there in Houston, mission ops team, had been just doing some practice sims and had come up with a potential failure scenario. And didn't think it was real, right? We really didn't think it was viable, but wanted to discuss it with the engineers all the way across the ocean in Moscow. And so I had a meeting with them the next day, typed it up, added it to my agenda. Hey, what if this happens? Simple, seemed like a very innocuous request. I got on the phone with them the next morning. The entire office over there was crammed into the conference room. And I had terrified these people. They're like, they've had a failure that should never have ever happened. And I disrupted their entire day just by thinking, all I was doing was asking a benign question, right? One of these what ifs. And I phrased my what if wrong and wasn't clear that, hey, this wasn't real. This was it might have, could have happened kind of one. And NASA does a lot of that, right? In the human spaceflight world, we do a lot of could this happen? Think ahead, think through these failure scenarios. And that's all it was. But I didn't put it in context for them. And so that was one of the things I always learned out of that experience and out of other experiences, whether it's down to the team, whether you're communicating, to the team working with you or communicating up to your stakeholders, is like, give me the context that sort of prefaces that question. And so I came out of that by trying really hard, with whether it was verbal or written, to say, all right, here's why I'm asking the question, and here's why it matters to you, or why it doesn't. A different example on context: when we were building up EFT-1, when we were doing the assembly of the vehicle ahead of EFT-1, we have almost daily phone calls where the team in Florida tags back in with the program office and gives an update. Here's what's going on today, tomorrow. Here's what's happening this week. Here's how we're making progress, towards that milestone. When you start getting, it is really easy to get bogged down in numbers. I installed 14 wire harnesses, or I did 10 welds, but then I had this problem and that, and you get lots and lots of data. It became really important, particularly up and out to the management in Houston and then the folks here, to provide the context for them. All right, yeah, so I installed 14 wire harnesses. That's good, because I only thought I was going to get 10. Or, yeah, I'm actually a day and a half behind, because the team thought, well, we were going to get 20, and now we got to figure out how to catch up. And so it became an interesting challenge to take all these myriads of pieces of data and all these numbers that you get when you're building up a vehicle, and it's probably true for any vehicle, right? We talk about swim lanes. Lots and lots of parallel paths of swim lanes of teams working, and some are ahead, some are behind. Big picture up and out. What does it mean, right? Where's the context? I've thought about it in the sense that when you get the opportunity to talk to your senior management, generally those individuals are really busy. They've got a lot on their plate. You've talked to them before. They kind of remember. They don't really remember. And so I always almost come in with the mindset of, here's why I'm wasting your time. Here's what's important, right? I need you to focus on me for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? I know it's going to be hard for you to focus on me because your phone is buzzing and you're getting other distractions and you got a lot of stuff going on. I need to set the stage and give you the context of vehicle processing is happening, and today we're doing well, and here's why, and then go from there. I think it's overwhelming, whether the team or their stakeholders, with too many facts. without maybe, I'm not sure if filtering is quite the right word. Context or filtering, so lots of data, nifty, but right, data without that feedback and without that, what does it matter to me? The entire team. This is one of my pet peeves about NASA, honestly, right? I tend to think we always want to tell the entire team everything. It's easier now, right, with social media and with all the communication tools we got. At the same time, the entire team doesn't necessarily need to know everything. Right? You need to know what you need to execute your task. All hands and big picture are good from a kind of a level setting and a timing perspective. You don't need it every day for everybody. And so if you have too much data flowing without context or without what's time critical, I think you'd end up diluting your message. So that when you do get to the critical stuff, it's harder to get folks focused and get their attention. We're an information-rich society, and engineers, we like it. It is easy. I do it, right? Gosh, it's really easy to just go gather all that data and spend a lot of time gathering that data. But step back and go, all right, for what my tasks were, go back to parachute testing, right? And that was what I was doing, working on before I came up here on this assignment, right? The parachute team needs to know what's applicable to the parachute team and what are their interfaces, what are their relationships to other parts of the program. It's interesting what the propulsion team is doing, but it's not pertinent to their work, right? So if you have it's healthy to have your all hands meetings and for the program manager to say, here's what's going, here's what we're tasked to execute. That is really useful, it's important. But when you get down to day-to-day execution, the parachute team, for example, knowing what the propulsion team test did the other day is nice, but can be distracting. Attention to your audience and what they need, and it varies all the time, right? It varies as the life of the program goes along. It varies based on the on who your audience is, right? If it's the entire team versus a narrow part, or if it's external stakeholders, right? Tailoring the message becomes important to keep your audience focused, right? I've gotten to where I use, with my outreach work that I do, they have me dabbling in social media. I've actually found that useful as a sort of a mental process as I'm getting ready to status anybody, whether it be management or a team. I've had to, I've taught myself to, when I'm doing outreach, to think in sound bites and 140 characters and whatnot. Don't need it to be that extreme when you're talking to your team. At the same time, you don't need to, recite the creation of the wheel every time either. I learned to communicate a couple of areas, I think. I give credit to my school, back to Valpo, for having an engineering program that also forced you to take public speaking. At that time, it seemed like a forced class, one of those nasty electives. And had a senior project that you had to go through and present and discuss your program. My early orbiter management team, way back early in my career, were really good about challenging you. So when there's some trial and error. I got told in a dry run one time, I got told to go home and come back the next day. That hurt. I wasn't prepared. I thought I was. I wasn't prepared. And so some of it was trial and error. I've done a lot with our education office at NASA and with our public affairs office, and going through those activities and learning to communicate to a different style of audience has actually helped me kind of craft how I talk and shape it depending on who all's listening to me. I've grown into a knack of being able to get a sense for what I think the audience needs and what they're listening for, and judge that and sort of adjust on the fly.